Greetings, everyone. Your cartoonist pal Stan here for another episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon, show I'm doing to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. And to that end, I'm having interviews with a bunch of people I know and like who have worked on the game. And all the while we're talking, I'm going to be doing a cartoon homage to a classic piece of D&D art, cartoon art. You can follow the show's free Substack newsletter at 50yearsinthedungeon.substack.com. That'll give you updates on who our guests are going to be. You will get first look at all of the finished art when it's done. You will have the option to buy art prints of the final pieces when they're done. If you decide to be a paid subscriber, you don't have to be. Almost all the stuff is free. A couple of things that you get if you pay, one of which is discounts if you want to buy the prints. But if you just want to see them, make the free choice. Sorry we're running a little bit late. Technical issues. We're doing something special this week, and that came with a little bit of technical problems. And neither I nor my guest are tech people. We are both artists, which meant that we had a lot of fun figuring all this out. But figure it out we did. We have solved the problem well enough. And that means I'm here. Glad to see so many people in the chat to begin with. Sorry if we kept you waiting or scared you. Hello to Linnea and Dave, a modern-day Spartan, first-time visitor. Welcome. Becky Mayer, Ravenlore. So happy to see you all. I know, you're not here to see me, because you can see me any week. You're here to see my special guest, who this week is one of the best artists I know, one of the best painters, and he's done stuff for not just for Dungeons and Dragons, for New York Times best-selling novels, and he has a Kickstarter running currently for a children's book that he is doing, or a holiday book that he's doing, and we're going to look at that later. And I'm going to stop babbling now, because rather than hear me talking about him, I know you want to meet everyone's favorite painter, Todd Lockwood. And so if I click the right button here, he will join us. Todd Lockwood is joining us. Hello, Todd.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you back.
I presume that everyone knows who you are, but someone is going to log in and watch this video some way and not be sure. So can you give us just a quick, someone meets you on the elevator, who are you? Why should I know who you are, Todd Lockwood?
I'm a painter and author. You've either probably seen my artwork or hopefully also read some of my words. I worked in advertising for the longest time before TSR hired me as part of the art staff in Lake Geneva, working on Dungeons and Dragons. And that led to Wizards of the Coast. I'm trying to remember where I met you first, Stan.
In Lake Geneva. In Lake
Geneva. Okay. I was pretty sure that was the case. That's what I put in the posts about this anyway. But I got to work on third edition, and together with Sam Wood and Don Murin, we put a center rail down for the look of the product, Dungeons and Dragons, because it had begun to meander all over the place. The freelancers did what they wanted. Each of the in-house artists had a different vision of a green dragon, say, or a black dragon, which was cool in its way. But I think Peter Edkison at Wizards and a lot of the people felt like it was time for D&D to grow up and act like an adult.
Right. And D&D, as a lot of the people that I've talked to, we talk about how all the ground that D&D broke, and it was setting milestones, and I mean, understandably so. It has a lot of ways it can be, right? Everyone's playing their own version of D&D, but as a product, as a game, as a property, it didn't have a singular look. Although although it had done a lot to influence fantasy art, it did it very broadly. And I think that what you're talking about, what you guys did, um, was a lot about establishing a look that, in particular, wasn't just fantasy; it was D and
Right,
D.
that it was D&D fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And a lot of people love D&D because it borrowed from everywhere and it could be anything. And our intention was not to change that by any wise, but to put down enough guidelines to just have it come out of the gates in its new version with a consistent look so that it made the best possible impact. It's just a good marketing practice, really.
yeah.
Um, and, it's part of growing up with a product. It's fun when it's fun. I can't tell you how much hate mail I got from medieval enthusiasts who insisted that plate armor could only look a certain way. um, I
Yeah.
don't know if
Well,
you were among them.
that's as I say, that's one of the best parts about D&D is at home you can picture it any way you want, but you
Exactly.
know, as a product, as a product in the modern marketplace, it needed to have a visual identity that would
Right,
that
right.
would once you say it is a thing, then anyone at home who thinks something else says you're wrong. And well, the fact that it can be anything, yeah, the fact that it can be anything means that if you set down some stakes that someone doesn't like, they need to understand it's still what they wanted at home. It's just it's you know
Absolutely. One
um
of this is only tangential, but it made me think of it that one of the shocks for me when I started working at TSR and was talking to, the people who were writing the characters and the worlds that we'd been playing was that um, Orcus and Lolth were both still alive on their planes, but we killed them. We killed them. They were dead in our universe, in our corner of the multiverse, I guess.
right,
And it kind of made me angry, but it also really imposed upon me an understanding of just how uh, real those worlds become to you. That's the real magic of D&D.
right.
Those worlds are real. I
um
knew they were dead. I killed them myself.
how could they not be? Ravenlore asks, I'm not sure. He says, can you ask Mr. Lockwood if he did the art for my favorite dragon of all time, the Steel Dragon? And I
I
don't know.
did, I believe, a painting of a steel dragon, um, but I didn't design it. That was fourth edition, so it came after me. Um, that doesn't need to be open. This doesn't need to be open. I got so many things in the way over here now. Um, what was I looking for? I don't know how to share this other than maybe to open
Well,
Dropbox.
we've
Drop
already we've already we
back.
spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to share things, and very few of them worked.
Well, apparently Safari and Chrome will both run at the same time, so there's that. Is this the one that you are in?
All right, so I'm gonna while you're looking there, I'm gonna fiddle on my screen here. Uh, Ravenlore says my fault. Uh, he's saying how much he loved the cover and that the work you did on Carnival. Uh,
Oh, that was a
so,
favorite of mine. Ravenloft. I never played in those worlds, but every Ravenloft cover I did is among my favorites. Like the golem made out of sticks and
Right,
twigs and
right. The Children
carved
of the Night
things.
covers.
And then the carnival was great fun. Um, God, there was another one, at least one other one. I can't
The
think what it is
ghosts,
now.
the Children of the Night ghosts you did.
Ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ghosts. That was the one. Yeah. It was the first time I worked with David Wise because that was his product, his project.
All right. I'm gonna uh, shift the conversation a little bit to the before you came to TSR, just to start off with. Uh,
Okay.
but as I do that, I'm also going to switch over here so that we're talking. I'm going to do my cartoon homage this week is
Ah,
based on 1985's uh, Urban Arcana, uh, 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 Unearthed Arcana. Wow. Cover by Jeff Easley. So I'm going to be doodling and getting
oh, I
started
love that painting.
on that. But I like to, because the show is looking at the history of D&D. Um, I wonder what your involvement with D&D was like before you got into it professionally. Like, were you when you were?
I started playing in the end of 1976, early 77, just out of high school. A friend, older friend who'd been in the army in Germany, came home with it. And yeah, we started with that little white box full of pamphlets, which was pretty
Wow.
crazy. I know I have that here still somewhere, but I don't know where it is. I would not have sold it or let it be thrown aside. Um, but yeah, that was way back in the day, and so I started DMing early on because I love storytelling as much as anything. Um,
So how old were you at that point?
I was 20-ish.
And were you in art school? What were you doing?
I was between high school and art school when I started D&D. I was just working in a lumber yard. It's where I met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
We met in a lumber yard in 1979. But I'd already been playing D&D for a couple of years with high school friends, basically, and they're still friends to this day. And it's because D&D cemented us together. And everybody
That's
has friends like that, right?
Yeah.
That
I
can
mean, that I
come
was gonna
forever.
say that's a story that I think everyone that's been on the show so far has in common.
Yeah, it just has to be. It's um, another one of those stories we all have in common is one that sort of inspired the bar fight painting. Do you remember that one, Stan?
Yes, yes.
Um, that was fun because I hadn't worked with the advertising side of D&D before. This was actually after Hasbro laid us all off. So I was a freelancer at the time. But Melissa, now Rapier, I can't even remember what her last name was then. Um,
I don't remember.
she was working in advertising, and she called in a little bit of a panic because they needed artwork in 2 weeks for this thing, and did I know anyone who could do it? And I had just had a window open in my schedule, so I said, I can do it. What do you need? And she said, we need a painting to encompass 25 years of D&D. Um,
Oh, is that all?
or, or was it 30 years at that point? Now I don't remember. Because aren't we coming up on 50? Isn't that why you're doing this podcast?
Yeah, yeah. No, it must have been 30 because we were both still with the company for the 25th anniversary.
In Lake Geneva.
No, no, we were in Wisconsin, but you had done. That's when you did the big Dragonland silver anniversary painting, the big dragon with
Right, the Silver
race.
Dragon for the silver anniversary issue
Yeah,
of
silver
Dragon.
anniversary was 25 years.
And now, okay, we were still on staff. So that would have been When?
That
2001?
that would have been 1999.
1999. 99. So it was the 30th anniversary, and they were throwing a party at Gen Con for attendees, and they wanted an image that would say 30 years of D&D, and it needed to look like third edition or 3.5, but it also needed to honor all that past history. Um, and they wanted to show all the iconic characters, wizard, fighter, you
Right,
know, down the list. And then all the iconic races. So not just dwarves and elves and men and halflings, but also goblins and classic monsters and beholders and stuff. And they said that's all. Oh, and then cinematic moments needed to all be recorded, like the crossed swords or um, the roundhouse kick or
right.
the dodged arrow, things like that. And she said, what we can't figure out is how to incorporate what they're serving at the party, which is turkey drumsticks and ale. And thought for half a second and said, that's easy. That's a bar fight. And that's the thing every group of characters also has in common.
Right.
Their first time out early on, what do you want to do? I don't know. They went into town. We started a fight in the bar. That's what it looked like.
Yes.
And then the next painting is either they're all in jail, they're all dead, or they're fleeing the burning city. The three usual outcomes, right?
Right. Yeah. So you wound up doing that big painting. I love that painting. I
That's my favorite thing I ever did for D&D because it was silly, but it was fun, and it was true to the game, and it was almost like being in somebody's family room, gathered around a coffee table with all your papers and your
right.
screen, your dungeon master screens and whatnot.
I tell you the thing about that painting was I that happened after I left. Like
Uh,
so I was down in
yeah, it was
San
after I
Diego
left as well.
when
Yeah.
that happened, and they made that poster and made it available to everyone in the office. And I never got one. And
Oh no.
no, so when I went back as a contractor, as you know, working at TSR or Wizards, there's always a free table, and there's things from throughout the history of the company will show up there occasionally. And one day, someone put that poster out, and I was able to grab it, and
There
I've
you
got it in my files for the next time I know that I'm going to meet up with you. I'm
go.
going to bring it so I can get you to sign it.
All right. Well,
But
for you, I will sign it.
I
There was
think
a
I
period
remember you
where
saying you didn't like that the printing on that one was not what you want, was not up to
no, the
snuff.
printing was awful. Yeah, the printing was horrible.
Um,
Um, Whoever handled the printing did not do a good job.
but you can't deny the fact that that was an awesome piece of art.
I was also a little upset because we still had the right to sell prints at the time,
Right,
but there they were at Gen Con handing out free copies of that print to pretty much my base demographic for that print.
right,
And they had the right to do it, but it upset me a little bit.
right. You've got the right to do it, but just we're soiling the market.
It was kind of a dick move.
Um, all right, so you were playing D&D since before I was actually. You beat me by about a year and a half. You win.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
then you were at art school. So what what were your how did you get to be on staff? How did that come to be? Or I
Hmm.
mean, so including like what your
It
life was like, what's going on?
around 1994, I was desperate to get out of advertising. I was so tired of the shit work and the shit hours and the shit deadlines. And I happened to get the opportunity to do a cover for Asimov's magazine of science fiction and fantasy.
Right.
And that was because the artist that they had lined up to do it was also represented by my agents in New York, who were um, soul sucking monsters, these guys. um,
Not to put a
they,
too fine a point on it.
they had no interest in book cover work or magazines like this one. Um, it was kind of on the fringe of things that they would even touch, Asimov's and what was the other one? They were companions.
Um,
They're both gone
Argosy,
now, I think.
or
What was that?
was it Argosy?
No,
No,
they were
Strange
smallish
Worlds.
digests, but they had short stories mostly, and Asimov's. And now, see what happens? You get old.
Yeah.
These important things go away. Um, anyway,
Anyway, there was
a
another
British
magazine.
artist named Chris Moore was doing covers for them through my agents at the time. Very talented man, still working, airbrush artist, and does a lot of sci-fi and mostly in the UK. But
Okay.
he got some kind of horrible infection in one of his eyes, and he couldn't do it. And
Mm,
so I subbed in an emergency and did a painting that he was supposed to have been able to do. And the art director was very happy with it and offered me another cover. And she was very happy with that. And I was having fun. Now, even though I'm not making the kind of money that my agents want me to make, I'm
right.
actually doing something in the genre I went to art school to do. And it's been 15 years of doing beer cans and satellite dishes and
Right.
cigar packages and just the most utterly horrible work. Um, and I asked the art director, how can I get more work like this? And she said, hang a show at a science fiction fantasy convention. I said, what's that? I had no idea. Uh, this is fun to watch this happening. This is how you draw, kids. You make a sketch or you make a thumbnail, really, and then you tighten up your sketch and then you add a layer.
And then
But
if you're me, you do it real fast.
yep, I see you cruising through this. Um, so I went to the Worldcon in um, Canada. I don't want to say, oh my God, names are falling out of my head now. Manitoba?
Manitoba?
What's that?
Manitoba?
Manitoba. Yeah, what's the capital? Winnipeg. Winnipeg.
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. Oh my God.
Winnipeg is
Well,
not the capital, but it's the capital of Manitoba. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was my first convention, was the World Con in Winnipeg in 1994. I met Michael Whalen and saw so much other good stuff, great art, met other artists, and realized that these are my people. What have
I
I
find
been
it really
doing?
funny that you were playing D&D so early, but you didn't know it all about sci-fi
I
convention.
know. I knew nothing about Gen Con, not until after Worldcon. But it was somebody I met at that Worldcon. Um, actually, no, it was a month later at World Fantasy in Baltimore.
Hmm.
Someone I met there, another artist, um, introduced me to the guy who introduced me to Stephen Donnelly, who was at the time an art director at TSR. Um, and it was just about at the same time that um, Dana Knutson and
Hmm.
Rob Ruppel resigned. And so they were looking for two new artists, and I put in a portfolio, and they hired me, and then they hired Randy Post, and then Randy Post
Wow.
showed up, and then I showed up. and that was in
Wow.
'96. And that was 2 whirlwind years later than me learning that there was even such a thing as a convention. It seems so bizarre. And right before that job offer came from TSR, my appendix exploded and nearly
Ooh.
killed me. And I look back on that as a strange sort of demarcation point between my old life and my new life. It's like I shed the advertising and all that shit that goes with it and
And
started
you,
working in a genre that had been my source of entertainment for the entire time I was hating my job. So yeah, definitely a pinch me dream job. Uh,
apparently
never
you'd
had
been
more.
storing all that shit in your appendix and you just needed to get rid of it.
That could well be. Who knows?
Huh.
Look at
Wow.
you
I
go!
had I had no idea. I am because I got to TSR in '96 also.
Wow,
Um,
we were there at the end of September of '96.
that's the, so you and I joined at right about the same. September 16th was the start. My first day.
Wow. Okay, you were there a couple weeks before me.
Because I was to say, I know Rob Rupel was there for at least a month or two because I got to interact with him over. I was working on Ravenloft, and I got to interact with him
Well,
about
he
some.
was gone before I got there, and that was definitely
No, it must
'96.
have been just a couple of weeks, and I because I always uh, I know that
Yeah,
I
but the
interacted
interview
with him.
process took like a month.
Hmm?
So Rob Rupel had to have been gone for a while, or maybe they knew he was leaving. Maybe, maybe
They knew he was leaving.
if yeah, maybe that
I
you
was.
started before he left, but I arrived after he left or
Hmm,
something.
all
But
right. Well,
they
I
started
guess it
interviewing
then.
when they knew he was going, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I, I guess they told me to talk to him before he walked the week before he walked out the door. Good timing on my part.
I
Nice
guess.
guy.
Yeah, I like Rob. He's like an artist's artist.
Yeah.
He's so good. He left to work for Disney. You remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. All
Sorry, I'm
right.
fiddling
So
with
now
the
we find
camera.
out that you and I started almost exactly the same time. Who knew?
That's that's crazy. But we were
um,
in separate wings of the building always. I only ever saw you in passing,
oh no,
right?
I came in because I did some posing for Randy. I came into the artist room sometimes, but you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
working.
sometimes. I mean, we saw each other around, but we
Yeah.
weren't working in the same place.
No.
We were in that art studio off on the corner of the building, and you guys were in the Gopher
I
Pound.
was right. I had one of the cubes right on the balcony, overlooking the big wall,
Okay.
which means nothing to
Yeah,
anyone watching here, but you and I can enjoy that part of the
yeah,
room.
yeah. Yeah, I barely remember that. It was strange because I'd been there 2 weeks when they laid all the people off and declared bankruptcy.
Oh,
I sold
so
my house in Colorado and moved my family to the boonies of Illinois and Woodstock, about
well
30 minutes south of Lake Geneva. And I moved from a, a seller's market to a buyer's market.
right.
So that was good. We got a good house and, I liked the neighborhood and Tony Sudlow lived there. But then they went bankrupt and laid a third of the people off.
Yeah. Well, I mean that happened the week before Christmas that year.
Yeah. As it always does, right?
Yeah.
Sorry for fiddling with that camera. Keep
It's all
sliding.
right.
There we go.
Okay, so that's how you got there. We get there at the end of '76, and so
96.
96. Sorry, '96. Um, so
Analog, yes,
well,
David Lemon. I should be looking at the the chat here. Children of the Night Ghost. Yep. Sorry, I'll stop gushing. Okay, gosh. Urban Arcana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Analog. It was Asimov's and
Analog.
Analog. Those
Yeah,
were
yeah,
the two
yeah.
magazines.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh, and oh, that's Scott. Art of the Genre. That's Scott. Hey, Scott. Yeah, I did an Orcus black and white for the old Dragon magazine in like '79. I mean, I actually did work for D&D that long ago.
So while that's what you were doing when you were working as your as a in advertising, or while you were a student,
Um,
or both?
that in '79. See, I graduated from the Colorado Institute of Art in 1979. So, no, wait, I started in '79. I graduated in '81. So that's just something I did to entertain myself um, while I was in school and playing D&D. And how funny. You know, a friend of mine, um, Bill Lennox, wrote an article about the winged folk that ran in Dragon magazine, and I
Mm.
illustrated. And eventually, I think the winged folk found a place in one of the game worlds or one of the source books. I don't remember now.
Everything found a home eventually.
I'm reading Ravenlore's comments here. Pretty funny. Yeah.
um,
Well, you only have so much space in your head, and you have to keep putting new things in. That's the problem. Have you seen that movie, um, Inside Out? Is that the name of it? The Pixar movie about the five emotions that live in the little girl's head,
yes, yes.
and the way they depict that thing is people going through this storage of memories and cleaning out the ones that have turned gray and throwing them down the memory hole. It happens.
Sounds like life to me.
It's why
Um,
we watch Jeopardy every night.
so, what were you working on when you first got there?
The first thing I worked on when I got there, I believe, was um, a book about the Sahwagin, the sea people, whatever, however you pronounce that.
Mm.
Um, Randy Post and I worked on that product, and Paul Jakeways, um, as he was then, and who is now
Mm.
gone, as
Yeah,
Janelle
Janelle, who sadly we lost late last
recently.
year.
Yeah, in the last few months, that came as a shock.
It did.
But
Um,
that was the first thing I worked on, and then I did a book cover which turned out truly awful and made me wonder if I was going to crash and burn. Um, I gave that one away at a panel in which Donato, Michael Whalen, and I were supposed to each bring our worst painting ever, and only I brought mine. And I contributed it to the auction, and somebody bought it and now has it, which is a little mortifying.
so now you never
But
have to worry about it again.
but then after that, I think possibly the very next painting was the four-armed god of war that I painted for. I don't remember which game world now. What I should probably do over here is open my website up. I'd have better luck remembering everything.
Well, I'm certainly not going to hold you to absolute details. Memory serves. Um,
But the thing I remember most about that painting, God, I wish I could share my screen with you. Um, oh well. Gorgoroth, 1996. Yeah, that had to have been the second thing. It's a six-armed guy in a red cape standing in a sea of blood. This was the art order. He's standing in a sea of
That
blood, waving his bloody scimitars about.
that was
And
a
that's about,
Forgotten Realms product cover.
okay, okay. And that was I don't remember, but I got it all done, and it looked really cool and bloody and everything. And then somebody in editing said, "Oh, Lorraine doesn't like blood on the covers." Uh, Wait, what? The art order said he's standing in a sea of blood. So I've got corpses floating in it and everything. And there's blood on his blades. So the edict was that I had to go back and enhance the reflections of the lightning bolt in the sea of blood to tone the bloodiness down a little bit. Um, and I showed it then after I'd done that work to Jeff Easley, and he said, "Oh, it's a sea of blood and milk." Fucking Jeff. He, he had the best. He has the best dry delivery.
He is one of the driest human beings I know.
Yeah, and he'll just sit there quietly and say nary a word, and then inject something that just leaves everybody in stitches.
Right?
He picks his moments. But that's sort of the way he painted too. Watching him paint was a treat because I'd go over and look over his shoulder at his board, and he'd have some pencil work done. He'd kind of laid the composition out. It was drawn, but it was just pencil on gesso, and he's just sitting back in his chair, rocking and studying it, and rocking and studying it. He hasn't even mixed up a palette yet. And I'll go back and I'll work for a couple hours, and I can come back over and look at it, and it's in the same state. And he's just been staring at it and rocking back and forth for the last hour and a half. I go back to work, and I get up, peek over his shoulder. Nope, it hasn't changed. And I go have lunch and go to the bathroom and come back, and the painting is two-thirds done. He was just sitting there planning his approach. And he worked on it for a few more days after that, but he
Right.
he rehearsed it in his mind's eye so that when he attacked it, he knew where everything went and how to render it. So it was probably mostly cartoon because I think most of it's in that room. I certainly picked it up from Jeff, putting it all down in burnt umber first in a tonal study that you then
Right.
glaze over and add some opaque highlights. And I think I probably picked that up more from Jeff than from anybody. Um, Never a brushstroke wasted in a Jeff Easley painting.
It's quite a crew there. I mean, TSR over the years, and Wizards until they decided they didn't need artists in house anymore, just put together these crews of all stars, and
Hmm.
and that, I mean, for me that was always a treat. I mean, I was there as an editor and a game designer, but in my heart, I've always been a cartoonist first. And I just there was even less work for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a fact.
so
Oh, I feel incredibly fortunate to have spied that skinny little window and dived through before it slammed shut.
yeah,
I mean, that was a career changing move. Everything that has followed from that came from taking that shot. I was so done with advertising, I was going to either get a better class of work or hang up my brushes and get a real estate license.
ugh,
Um,
well, our
because I figured I could do that.
the real
I'd
estate world's
probably be
loss is
retired now if I had, but
definitely the fantasy world's gain.
well, thank you. I sure had fun, and
Um, so
what a great
Raven
fun.
Ravenlore asks, what medium did you do your cover work in? Uh,
Oh, it was usually oil paint. Yeah. I did most of my advertising in the beginning with airbrush, which I loathed, but everybody wanted airbrush because that was the era of airbrush, late 70s, early 80s. And then a lot of acrylics because of the drying time. I was always having to send commercial work overnight to New York to meet
Right,
an insane deadline. So it wasn't until I got to TSR that I was able to commit myself to painting in oils. I had dabbled in them and knew that I liked them, but drying time was always the issue. And then what I learned from, also again, largely from Jeff, a little liquid in your paint and then put your lamp close to the paint surface overnight to heat it up. And it'll dry those umbers and all those earth tone colors really quickly overnight, basically. So there were ways to do it. And we didn't have stupid deadlines either. So,
right. So what you know, that's something I actually never knew. What were the deadlines like? How did things go when you were
oh,
on staff at
frequently I would have plans to meet the guys and girls for D&D on Saturday, and then Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock, an art director calls with a job that they need Monday morning.
uh,
So I would get 2.5 day deadlines. And when those would come from New York, um, I would have to tell them I can't give it to you Monday morning. I have to FedEx it. I can't FedEx it until Monday because FedEx didn't have weekend service at the time.
right,
And so the earliest I can get it to you is Tuesday, but that was still a 3 day deadline. And that's to draw it and paint it and deliver it. So it was stressful, lots of all nighters. I
right.
was young, but I had children. I had a whole nother life besides painting beer cans for people who don't really appreciate. Anyway, don't get me started. I
So,
could
but
tell you
when you got to
stories.
TSR, what did it become then?
What did what become?
What the deadlines? How
Oh, weeks. Time to develop ideas. And, there was stuff that had to be cranked out, like the mock ups for of future covers for the catalog.
mhm.
That was something that apparently happened every year. I took part in that first year. It didn't happen at Wizards of the Coast, though, for some reason. Maybe because the schedule became more sane and we could do the paintings a year in advance, which is how the publishing industry does it. But weeks for most things, yeah. And then
So
when Wizards of the Coast brought us out, Brahm negotiated that we would do a painting a month. And I was fine with that. I was used to doing a painting in a week or 2 weeks, which is beats the hell out of 2 days or 3 days. But
right,
a week was even better. But then there's some paintings that I cranked out, like the standee of Regdar for the third edition
God.
launch. That Regdar, who everybody hated because he wasn't a dwarf. Um, but I had a week to do that painting, so some things happened quickly. But by then I was in the bullpen in Wizards of the Coast, and I knew who my best models were, and everything was down to a system, so I was able to do that.
So you usually I'm going to ask you questions that I know the answer to because I know the people watching don't. So
Okay,
you did a lot of work with models. Then you would get people who. How did that work?
I would pick a fellow employee who I thought had the right features for a character and ask them if they would pose for reference for a painting. And they pretty much always said yes because that means they were enshrined in D&D history. Um, Lots of secretaries and ad girls and um, like Sean Glenn and I can't remember half their names any longer, but like you might remember the name of the girl who was on the cover of Ghost.
That was Miranda Horner.
Miranda Horner. No, that was not Miranda Horner. It was a
Yes, it
different
was
redhead.
on Ghosts. That 100% was Miranda Horner.
I thought. Miranda Horner was a different redhead. She worked in the office. Excuse me.
Oh, you know what? Maybe no, you painted it, so you know. But I'm telling you, it looks 100% like Miranda Horner.
Well, you would have known Miranda Horner for sure, probably,
Oh
because
yes,
she was at Wizards, and this other girl
yes.
didn't make the trip. She stayed in Lake Geneva.
Right. Well, whoever it was, your painting of her looks like Miranda.
That's hilarious because I can see them both in my mind's eye, and they both have red hair, and that's about the end of it.
Are
Anyway,
you talking
the
about
thing I
Julie
remember about that
Mazurek?
painting was that I wanted her dress billowing ghost-like in the wind, and so I shot the reference of her laying down,
Right.
and we just draped the dress off the bench, and then she took a pose as if she was standing up, and I shot it, and then rotated it and drew from that.
Are you talking about Julie Mazurek?
That rings the bell. Yes,
All right.
she was very pretty.
She is. No, Julie, very, very pretty woman. And
That's
Miranda
who that
also
is.
very pretty woman. And
Yes, both,
people
both
did
of them.
sometimes get them confused. I can see that now. But
Yeah, it
I'll
was
tell you for
Julie.
sure. Oh, did I just do that again? I
What did
hate
you
when
do?
I do that.
Did you draw on the wrong
Drew on
layer?
the wrong layer.
I hate that too.
Yeah, okay. No, I tell you that ghost cover, I even today I would have bet all the money I've got in my bank account that that was Miranda, and I'd now be broke.
Well, let's do that. Let's have you bet that money.
No, there's not a lot of it.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's do that again on the right layer. Because Miranda got asked to do a lot. I know that Randy Post liked to have her as one of the people that posed for him. Um,
Um, uh, well, you're talking, I'm reading comments. Well, somebody asked, what paintings did you model for?
what paintings did I model for? Not many, and almost always I became some sort of monster. I was a draconian. I was an ogre. I was,
Well, we used
um,
each other as models all the time. I've certainly painted Randy a lot
yeah,
in those days, and he painted me.
I
So I
know that
ended
when we
up with,
came out, well, maybe not. Um, maybe it was before. Michelle Vukovic got asked a lot to be a model.
yes, yes.
She was
She
an
modeled
editor
for
on
me.
Dragon magazine, Dragon and Dungeon.
She modeled for me for a product. I think it might have been Ravenloft, or it was a Ravenloft Realms crossover. That's what it was. It was a crossover product because I painted the ghost character that Michelle Vukovic posed for on the ground of the painting, but the rest of the details were on two acetate overlays to transform her from one cover to the other cover. It changed her setting and the details around her. And that was interesting as an exercise, painting in oils on
Yeah.
acetate, but it meant that I didn't have two paintings. I had half a painting and then two other pieces of paintings. It was weird. The collector owns it now anyway. But the funny thing about Michelle Vukovic was that I needed that ghost character to have an angry frown on her brow because
Hmm.
she's a hateful spirit. And she couldn't frown. Michelle could not frown to save her life. I'd say, frown. What does your face look like when you're angry? She says, it looks just like this because I'm tired of you asking me to frown. Um, she would try and her eyebrows would just kind of go, worried. So I took the picture without her frowning and then used a mirror and put my own frown on her brow, and she ended up looking like my sister.
I'm sure your sister was flattered.
Yes,
Did,
Forgotten Terror and Castle Spolzier. Um,
okay.
Scott's saying one of my favorite pieces of yours features your daughter and son. Lots of my paintings feature my daughters and my son. There came a time, I had all these young teenagers in my house eating my food, so they modeled for me.
That's right.
Plus,
They
they're all
worked for their
good-looking
food.
kids. So Tyler has been drizzed more times than anybody, and the girls at different times have been elves and other persons.
Is it,
Oh, because
is it true that
right,
Caldwell was a stand-in
Kiss
for
of the
Harkon
Immediate,
Lucas?
Kiss of the, that was a magic painting, yeah.
Uh,
And that was Caitlin and Tyler, but I had to turn Tyler into a black man, so it doesn't look like him. But it gave me lighting cues, where the highlights go and stuff. But that's entirely Caitlin as the angel kissing his brow. Yeah, it's a personal favorite of mine too. It's the tenderest magic card ever.
aw.
Nobody's being beheaded or disintegrated or run through or disintegrate. Oh, I said disintegrate, but that
Har-
happens a lot.
Hardly even a magic card.
And I
um,
don't know, was Clyde Caldwell the stand-in for Harkon Lucas on the cover of Beast of Goblins? Wow, Ravenlore has got the lore deep.
I tell you
I
that
don't know
this
the answer.
this podcast attracts people who've been fans for quite a while.
Clearly, clearly. I can't answer that question because I don't even know who Harkin Lucas is. That's how there are way harder core fans than I am.
This is suddenly going to turn into that Saturday Night Live skit with William Shatner. I don't know. It's just a game. Go home, kiss a girl.
Well, it was a different game to me. I mean, like I said, we killed Orcus and Lolf on their own
Right.
plane. We didn't just kill them on our plane and send them home. We went to their plane and killed them dead. And so it was weird to have them still alive when I got to TFI.
Okay, so let's look for a second at. I mean, we're hitting an hour already. This is what happens every week. I get chatting with someone, and an hour goes like that. So the one of the things that I love, and people are always fascinated, is that what you and Sam and the couple other people did for third edition that we started talking about at the beginning of the show,
Mm,
right? So, as you said, this it had never been really true before that there was a particular visual guide for the game,
yeah, yeah.
right? And particular again, I'm sorry, I'm going to pontificate for a second. Again, coming
Sure.
back to third edition when we got away from doing all of the settings, right? And then one of the reasons was the settings, right? Each setting
Right.
could have it wander in the way that it did. Third edition was coming back to the core. So you and Sam got an assignment very early on to start working on this. How
Yeah.
did that
Yeah.
go?
Um, Sam was one of the cartographers at the time, but he's a talented artist and a D&D player and fan. He went to Harvard to study some subset of biology and art. So he understood animal anatomy thoroughly,
Mm-hmm.
which I also have always aspired and tried to do. Um, I hate bad anatomy on animals or creatures either, for that matter.
Right.
And we just kind of meshed in our thinking because we both wanted to see things look the way not only we'd always imagined that they looked, but I'm saying this badly, but the thing is, we wanted dragons to be real, which means they needed to make sense to us, who had spent our art careers up to that point making sense of the way things look. Like
Right.
understanding animal anatomy is part and parcel of making good animal drawings and paintings, right? Uh, should be obvious. So we wanted the dragons, for example, to make sense, and so we just meshed, and he'd play off of me, and I'd play off of him. It was honestly as much fun as I had had drawing since I was a kid drawing on the kitchen counter with my buddy from down the street who also liked to draw. Just drawing and feeding off each other. It was so much fun.
So what was the actual assignment that you guys were handed?
Well, we were told that it's something actually Dawn Mirren and I petitioned for. She came up with it first, but I jumped right on because it had
Hmm.
been in my mind too. Was that we just need to come up with the third edition version of all the monsters and all the creatures and all the demi-human races
Right.
and define the differences between dwarven armor and human armor or gnomish armor or elvish armor and create a more built world, I guess you could say. Instead of a grab bag of worlds, give it a sort of a baseline starting place that
Right.
made its own sense.
One of the things I remember you saying, I'm pretty sure it was you, was that one of the things that you wanted was that after you were done and things went forward, when you were looking at a D&D piece of art, no matter who was doing it, if you saw a, an armor or a piece of clothing or a silhouette, you would know, oh, that's dwarven armor, even if the dwarf
Right,
wasn't wearing it. Right?
right.
That it was creating that kind of uh, visual language for the.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Visual language. I like that. Um, Scott's remembering a story I told him. It was that same time when we were painting Sahuagin. Jeff Easley was painting a shark, and I looked over his shoulder, and the pose of the shark, it was from a specific angle, a specific bend to the shark, and I knew just looking at it that something was wrong. And he had done what Jeff does, is he draws out of his head, and he's one of the few artists who can get away with it all the
Right.
time. But I had a bunch of books called the Wildlife Fact Files that I'd started collecting in the middle 80s, which was books of every animal. And every couple of weeks, an envelope would come in the mail with more leaves to put into the binders of more animals. And I would go to those when I needed to draw an animal. That was before the internet, right? So we couldn't just Google shark. You had to have pictures of sharks. And I was going through sharks anyway for my own thing because I had to paint a shark too. And I came across a photo of the very shark that Jeff was painting from the very angle and everything. So I took it over
Right.
and showed it to him and said, "Look at this, Jeff. Here's real shark reference." And I think he moved two of his erroneous fins up a little bit, and that was it. His attitude, I think, was sort of, I got this far. It's a fantasy shark. Fuck your reference.
That
It was pretty funny.
may be how sharks look in the Pacific, but this
Yeah,
is
we're talking
Torel.
about the Pacific in another universe, so get over it.
I remember that you did the flying sequence for the red dragon and the gold dragon.
Yeah, I animated them just because I wanted to. When I discovered you could use Painter like a animation cell studio, I was like,
Mm,
because that's one of the things I geeked on when I was a little kid was animation. I drew animations. I made flip books. We had a turntable for our little kiddie records that had a thing that sat in the middle with mirrors on it that would reflect the picture on the label. And as the record spun, it would animate. And so I drew my own animations to put on the record player.
hmm.
With this little mirror gazebo thing on top of. So I loved animation. So yeah, I felt like I had to do that.
Um, yeah, no, those were amazing. Eventually, I know the website posted them briefly. Somewhere along the line, it got back out there, and I found them. I downloaded MPEG files of
Hmm.
just a loop of the dragons
Yeah,
flying.
they're out there. When I want to look at them, I Google them. I don't look into my own files. They're easier to find on the internet.
Right. But again, that's the kind of thing that had never been done before, right? Different
Not for
artists drew
D&D.
them flying in different ways. This whole project, the whole concept of the project to create this visual language, as we were saying before, is something that in the years of Dungeons and Dragons had not been done previous to the time that you and Sam did it.
Right, apart from first edition, such as it was, um, which one of the things I'm proudest of with the dragons is we didn't just make up whatever we wanted. We went back to David Sutherland III's original
Mm,
dragon drawings from the first monster manual. He was not a gifted draftsman, but he was really creative.
yeah,
And his designs, some of them looked nonsensical the way we drew him, but that was our challenge was to look at these as if David Sutherland had seen these dragons in the wild and drew this his first best impression. And now we're going to go out into the wild and take photos and catch them when we can draw them in their detail and make sense of his drawings. And that's what we did. So they have a through line from the very beginning to today.
and they did.
and, and they did.
Um, all right, you know what? Now I'm going to pause what I'm doing here and bring us back up to just you and me for a second. I'm going to switch on here so people can say if people are looking for you, they can find you at toddlockwood.com is maybe the
Yep.
best place to start. Um, now, again, since I'm running this whole show, I've got to look down instead of looking at you for a second. But you right now are doing a Kickstarter,
Yes. I'm
and
kickstarting something that nobody would ever have expected from me
what?
because I've been saying lately, I'm known for the four D's: Drizzt, D&D, and Dragons.
and dragons.
And this is none of the above. It's actually something I started in 1990 before my first convention, before TSR or any of that,
Mm,
when my kids were all still little, and I was looking for a way out of advertising. And a friend said he wanted to take this class on children's books at our old alma mater, and would I go with him? And I thought, yeah, I'll be a good friend. I'll go with him. And I got this idea, and once it had hold of me, I couldn't let it go. And it was a simple idea, but complicated to pull off. But I've never been afraid of detail, as you can kind of tell.
yeah,
Um, and the idea was that you take something familiar and present it in a way that it's never been presented before, but should have been. And that was this Christmas Carol, The 12 Days of Christmas,
right.
which is this odd little song from the Middle Ages with lots of birds and food and dancing and pipers and
Yeah.
but any book I had ever seen of it was pretty unimaginative. And the thought that struck me was, what if you take each day's list and read it literally so
Right.
that you get everything on the list every day? So by the end of it, you've seen 12 partridges in 12 pear
Right.
trees of some sort. Um, Now, I did cheat because otherwise, at the end, there would have been 42 swans and 42 geese. And really, nobody wants to clean up after that. But it does build in a sort of Malthusian way.
So you went and you, when your kids were little, started working on this project.
Yeah, I drew all but the last day and a half, or spread and a half, I should say. I drew 12 and a half days worth of artwork because the last day encompasses three spreads. It's sort of a big finale. But I drew it all 30 now, 34 years ago. Um, and I started trying to shop it around immediately. I made up a little mock up with um, Xerox copies and sent them around. And I just kept hearing nobody wants kids' books and nobody especially wants Christmas books.
Mm,
What I think they were really saying was, we don't want an unfinished book from an unknown artist. So, um, discouraged, I set it aside because I had to make a living, and
right.
you can't feed your family with rejection letters. Um, and I started looking for other ways out of advertising, and TSR. I mean, honestly, that was the best break a struggling young artist could have gotten. I mean, as I've said, I was inordinately lucky, and it changed my career um, and kept me busy. But the 12 days was always in the back of my head because I just had a belief in that project that it was something that people would come to treasure if they knew it,
Right.
if they could get their hands on it, actually hold it. Um, Everybody I showed it to loved it and would ask me about it later. What did you ever do with that kid's book? So in 2002, when Hasbro laid us off, I had just been introduced to Corel Painter, and I realized then as I was working on stuff uh, for Wizards for D&D and Magic that this was the medium I needed that I'd been looking for. I'd always pictured this book as watercolor on top of my pencil drawings,
Mm,
and my water skills were not up to snuff, and these drawings weren't finished enough, and they were all on tracing paper. It would mean transferring them. It was logistically challenging because of the level of detail. Um, I did do the first day once in oils and again in acrylics,
mm,
and I was unhappy with it both times. And again, I couldn't take time out, the amount of time it would take to do it. So I set it aside. And in 2002, knowing that I could paint them now and having a scanner, I got those drawings out and I scanned them and I formatted them in Photoshop. I'm thinking now they're ready for the next step. And the next step was to wait while I painted Driz 30 sometimes and book covers across the industry and wrote a novel for some reason. And it wasn't until about a year ago, a year and a month ago, that as editing on my second manuscript for the Evertide series bogged down
mm,
after Penguin Random House sold DAW to Astra in China and people's uh, jobs changed. And I'm not sure if my editor is even any longer an owner, has any stake. I don't know what condition DAW's in because she told me that she couldn't read my manuscript until it was pretty good to go. And I knew it was not ready. I needed my
right.
editor. So I headed out to other editors and beta readers, and I got some good feedback, but I was frustrated and I was questioning my life's decisions. And I came across those scans and I realized, I am right now in a position to do this project if I start today. So I did. And I worked on that almost exclusively for a year. And I painted all the paintings.
So, Todd, this is Troy, says modern day Spartan. I saw your prints at Emerald City Comic Con and had no doubt people will want your 12 Days of Christmas, which is a great segue for me to switch over here and show everyone
There you go.
the cover. And
So
we've got
that's the
a
cover.
whole bunch of files here to share.
Yeah, that's clipped somehow, top and bottom.
Yeah,
What's up?
well, as I said at the start of the show, we've had some technical difficulties. This is not perfect, but
Okay.
it's. I mean, I can zoom out a bit and show it, but
Okay.
when I let
Well,
go,
zoom out a little so we're not chopping the tops and bottoms off of things. Um, yeah, you don't have to go all the way out. But there's your cover, basically. Goodbye. Oh, hello. That's good right there. That's not bad. Um, that was actually the last painting I did. The I hadn't done a cover prior to that, so that will be the cover of the book. There, it won't be stark white like that. They're printing it on a paper that's a little bit pearlescent, almost like snow,
yeah,
but not that you would look at it and go, "Is that supposed to be snow?" It's just kind of pearlescent and cool. So,
all
the
right,
paper itself will add a little bit of dimension to that. And right now we're waiting on bids to have the cover embossed. What would the cost be? Um, and I think that would be cool. So then you saw the title page. That's the author portrait that'll be on the flap. A bit of spot art that goes on the flap. Um,
this is the
that
whole
is
cover,
the
front and back cover.
mock-up of the cover wraparound dust jacket that I did for Brown Books. I'm partnering with Brown Books, who are a hybrid publisher, which is something kind of new to me, but
Okay,
um, introduced through a friend. Um, I'm paying up front for a lot of printing and marketing services, but then I get the lion's share of the royalties on the other end of this thing.
right.
Um,
Which is why you currently have a Kickstarter going for this.
which is why I need the Kickstarter. Otherwise, I am deep into my own pockets. It's the only way this is going to happen. But this is the basic idea: is that it begins on the first day of Christmas. Set up an expectation that the lyrics will be on the left and there will be a picture on the right. Um, and every day there's stuff to find from the beginning. On every day, you can locate the date, the time, and a symbol of the holiday, whether it's religious or pagan or just traditional or just
Right.
fun.
So there in the upper left, we've got the time and the date on.
Yeah, and then that rose on the mantle, as kind of hinted by its petals on the left-hand page, is sort of symbolic of sacrifice and love
Right.
and a lot of those things that I'm not a deeply religious person, but I really like mythology and
Right.
storytelling and symbolism. Um, so that appealed to me like it's a sort of a multifaceted symbolic encapsulation of a lot of the different themes that have been layered onto Christmas by different traditions.
Right.
So that kind of thing is fun to me. And so here you see two turtle doves and another partridge
Third
in hand.
day.
So the third day, we're cleaning house.
Turtle doves around the
Three French
cage.
hens with their feather dusters. So there's your date and time again, and mistletoe hanging in the doorway.
I like the idea of French hens being French maids.
well, they had to have a purpose there. We're up to something here. This
Right.
isn't just random birds dropping in for a visit. We have an agenda here.
And on our fourth day,
Four calling birds. three more French hens, and then we got a turtle dove salt and pepper shaker and a candelabra pear tree with a partridge on top.
Yep.
Date on the wall, time up on the shelf, and there's a cross hanging on the wall. Oh, and this is the first day on which the illustration has had to cross the gutter of the book.
Right.
Um, so three of those crows are across the gutter, and we're now
Okay.
more consistently things are popping out of the frame.
Right. Right. You know what? I hadn't noticed that going there through it, but the size the of the frame is growing as we go day by day.
Yeah. So it's subtle at first.
Yeah.
It starts out so tranquilly with a Christmas star out the window on the first day. So on the fifth day, five gold rings, and he's giving her. You
Right.
can see one in each ear, one around her neck, and two more in the box.
And we
And
got
there's three
another.
more.
We got two sets of calling birds.
And we have three more hens
Three more hens.
who are laying eggs. We got egg production beginning all of a sudden. Um, Chocolate turtle doves. You can
Yep.
see one of those maid hens putting a pot of chocolate in on the counter or towards the sink, whatever. We never really see that corner of the kitchen. I think there's a sink right there. But we are kind of day by day traveling from the front room through the door into the
Right.
kitchen. So now on the sixth day, six geese are laying. We just got more egg production than you can imagine, and we are well across the gutter now. Um, I believe the gutter goes between the two turtle doves on the left and the two turtle doves on the right, up there behind Lady Bear.
Right.
See in the upper left
Go up around
corner.
here.
So kind of the ostriches are on the
Yeah, I was
left-hand
gonna say
page.
I'm betting the ostriches are on the left page and the lady
Yeah,
bear is mostly on the right.
yeah. That biggest cake gets bisected a little bit. But now we got all kinds of eggs. Um, there's your four calling birds. You could zoom in on that.
The four
See, this is something
there's
that
four calling birds over here. You
you'll
making a call.
making a call. You got to figure out what they're actually up to over time. You won't
Yeah.
get it immediately in the first reading. One of them's looking at what looks like a blueprint and scratching his head.
Yeah. So on top of the just the fun of the song and the natural kind of the as everyone here is pointing out how uh, adorable and pleasing all these characters are. There's more to be gleaned by looking closer in the paint.
Absolutely. There's almost little stories that happen in here. And here's where the penguin or the pelican story begins to be told.
Right. That's what was on the blueprints.
Right, right. And then we get six geese a laying. They're laying bricks for the patio because we got to build the venue. Um, there's four new calling birds each day. Today it's penguins.
We got three French peahen.
There
What?
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the new French hens. There's other French hens in the background. They're coming out the
Yeah.
door. Not everybody's out here. Some of these girls are still inside laying eggs. There's work to be done.
And we've still got a house to run.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something upcoming. We are going to need all those
Right.
eggs.
And then, oh, look, yeah.
So on the eighth day of Christmas, eight maids a milking. And then now seven live swans come to join the seven statue swans in the fountain. And you can't miss the four new calling birds, the
Right.
parrots. But we do have eight cows and eight bobcats who are milkmaids. So now we got milk production. So away we go.
Suddenly, this is feeling like a worker placement game.
I prefer to look at it as sort of a socialist animal utopia.
Did we get to the ninth day? And whoa,
9 drummers drumming. You almost need to zoom into the left-hand page and pan across slowly if you can. But now we see we have 9
the
dog
milking is
drummers.
now happening by a raccoon.
Yeah, we have 8 new milkmaids, and they're raccoons. Now that doesn't mean the bobcats are gone, as you'll see in a moment, because there's one
Yeah,
peeking under the skirt of the table. So I think the gift is the milk, not the milkmaids. So from here
right.
on, the raccoons and the bobcats trade shifts. I don't add any more milkmaids after this, because that would be crazy.
There's only so many cows you can handle in one manner.
Yeah, we only got 8 cows, but they need to
We
be
got
milked.
more geese flying in.
We got more swans flying in,
Yes,
yeah. No, I only ever have the 12 geese. The 6 ladies laying eggs and the 6 gentlemen laying bricks.
we got
So on the 10th
10
day,
pipers piping.
Piper's piping. We got 9 pig drummers. There are 8, there's a mix of bobcats and raccoons, totaling 8. 7 swans in the air and the fountain in the background. I believe all of the 4 birds are represented still
Right.
in this painting, although most of them are in the sky. And
It's
the
a
5
fine
gold
place
rings
for them. The
are
ostriches
done.
are still here too. Look, one's got an
Oh,
ice cream cone.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Go back a day. Go back to day 9 and zoom in on Gentleman Bear there to the right.
Oh yeah, making
Yeah,
ice cream.
yeah. They got eggs. They got cream. They're making
That's
ice
sure.
cream.
Yeah.
You, we got a party happening here. Is what's going on. We've got the food now. We had percussion. Now we got music, and
Oh,
now
everyone's got
now
ice
we
cream over
have
here.
dancing.
Ice cream all around. We've got to. Holy cats!
This is where I decided if I'm going to do dad jokes and silly humor, let's pull out all the stops. So we got 11 beavers dancing, and 10 alligators piping on bubble
Piping.
pipes, and 9 turtle drummers, and then below that it begins to be a mix of raccoons and bobcats to give you
Right.
8, and there are uh, I believe all 12 geese are here today. All the ladies are out of the kitchen. They're getting a day off. Looks like maybe the hens are in there laying eggs tonight. I don't know. There's always work to be done. The ostriches make almost every picture, I think. But you've got 5 gold rings in the form of cakes. You can see the bulldog dipping eggnog out of the swan
Yeah.
punch bowl, and there's 6 swan cups around to make 7 swans. Um, there's ice cream being served,
It's
pears to be had. If it's
it's
not
awesome.
pear ice cream, something's wrong.
All right, and then on the 12th day, ooh boy.
12 lords a leaping, and I thought they should be big because you got to be able to see your way into the picture.
Right. If once the
Um,
party's going, you got to get big to muscle your way in.
clear room for yourself.
Right.
Yeah, if you zoom in on one of those guys, and one of those rhinos, 9 of them have frog, or 10 of the 12 rhinos have frog pipers on their back, and 9
Yeah.
of them are carrying wind-up monkey drummers.
Yeah.
Um, there are
Ee,
11
ee,
lady
ee.
leopards, 7 of whom have swan tiaras on their heads. There's a full 21 swans in that picture, 14 live and 7 in the statue. Um, all 11 beavers are in there somewhere, all 8 bobcats, all 8 raccoons, all the dogs, um, or maybe not all the dogs. Now I don't remember. The counts are right anyway.
We got a little lamb running around here too.
And that's your little symbol for the holiday on the 12th day there, right there with the date.
Right.
Yeah,
That-
we have been
there.
keeping up with those, but there's those things are on every page. And if you
Oh,
go to the left,
we gotta leave some mystery for the people when they buy it.
sure, yeah, if you pan left, um, the bulldog has a pocket watch, and that's where you find the
Yep,
time.
there we go.
And you'll note that the text on the left hand of this page doesn't finish the verse.
No,
Four
no, it
cranberries,
doesn't.
three pumpkins, two turtle doves, dot dot
And
dot,
woo,
and there's the party. Now it's a party.
now it's a party indeed. Wow.
And on this page, uh, every critter and every gift that wasn't food to be consumed is in this picture. So all the beavers, all the bobcats, all the raccoons, all the lions,
They're having quite
everybody
a
is
party.
there
And
somewhere.
I do like the fact that over here in the lower right we've got our happy little couple still
Yeah,
pleased with
they're
themselves for
sneaking off.
throwing such a holiday bash.
They're sneaking off the corner of the page
Yeah,
for some reason. But there's all sorts of little things to find in this picture.
yeah.
The last page of the book, after the last spread, is a list of the things to find on the
Aw.
previous page. So there you go, and a partridge in a
And a
pear tree.
partridge in a pear tree. And Santa over there at the back.
Yep, yep. Can you see the man in the moon? It's a little
Yes.
hard in my
A
monitor, but
little hard at this resolution once we zoom in, but it's there.
yeah, I'm seeing it tiny because we're in the interface of the program. But
Aw. All right. That is what we've got. That's
so
what.
there should be one more page, isn't there?
Nope.
No? Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, take my word for it. It's a list. It says, "Can
I
you
believe
find
you.
all the guests and all the gifts at the party?" And it
All
lists
right.
them.
So this is what your Kickstarter is doing now. The Kickstarter address, of course, is long and complicated, but if they go to your website, they'll find it. Or
Right. And you can find me on Facebook. Um, look for
Todd
Todd
Lockwood.
Lockwood. And there is a 12 Days of Christmas Facebook page as well,
Right.
where you can find all sorts of close-ups and art and background info. And then the Kickstarter itself has all the background information.
Right. And so, how long is the Kickstarter going to be going for?
It will be going until I believe the 28th.
So
So 11 more
the end
days.
of
Yeah.
April, not quite
Yeah.
the end of April. So
Right. Right.
those of you who are
And
tuning in now, those of you who are watching this later, look at your calendar. If it's not the 28th of April yet, you can get in there and join in for this.
and please do because we're close, but we haven't funded yet. We're close. It's man, I got some hurdles right before we launched this. I had it all set up, ready to go. I'm in contract with Brown.
Right.
Things going to be done. It's going to press, and my primary Facebook page with 23,000
Yeah.
followers was stolen.
Yeah.
And I really still don't have access to that page. I have ownership of it, but there's a glitch somewhere that I
You can't do
haven't been
anything.
able to work out while I'm working on this other stuff. Where I was able to share stuff on that page right up to April 3rd, and then it stopped letting me share. So I really don't know what's going on. But there is a 12 Days of Christmas Facebook page, and my personal page much of it's public, so you can find me there. And then I did create a new The Actual Art of Todd Lockwood Facebook
Right.
page to try to rebuild some of what was on the other page. Um, Modern day Spartan. No, that's you, Troy. Okay, hey, Troy.
So yeah, so those of you who are watching, please go find Todd either at his website here or on Facebook and his site, The Art of Todd Lockwood, or the 12 Days of Christmas. Uh, Tell your friends about the Kickstarter. If they want to see it, point them to this episode of the show because we just ran through it. This is a really great preview of what's in the book. Um,
It's something that you can look at again and again and not find everything,
yeah,
which is the kind of art I always end up doing, like that bar fight or
yeah.
a number of things that you can find on my, the Thousand Orcs for Drizzt was specifically, it's like, I'm going to give them a cover they couldn't just buy off the street. I'll show them. This is who you're laying off, and then they laid me off.
That'll
But
happen.
I honestly believe this is a book that anybody could give to anybody.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
If you
beautiful.
don't know somebody with a little kid or somebody who's still a little kid, like modern day Spartan, that's a that's a mighty name, modern day Spartan.
Who's still a
He's the
little kid.
biggest Christmas softie you ever met. um,
All right. So yes, please until the 28th of April, you've got to go and check out and join in Todd's Kickstarter for his 12 Days of Christmas.
yeah, share it with people you don't normally share stuff with.
Exactly.
Your mom and
Even if
dad or your brother and sister. I mean, somebody wants this
right.
that I have a hard time reaching in this weird Facebook Kickstarter bubble
I tell you,
that this,
one of the things a lot of our fans don't understand is how helpful it is to spread the word. Right? Like, it's great if you do have the money and you want to pitch in. No one's going to say no, and we're happy to have you. But if you don't, or for whatever reason can't,
you don't want to
setting,
you don't have
like
to
you
want
said,
them, but yeah.
you know, sending the link, spreading the link to your friends, telling people about it is a huge help. And
Yeah, absolutely is.
I know Todd would be grateful for that. And like I say, if you want to point them to this show to look at it, I'd be grateful for that.
That
But
would be
let's get
cool too.
Todd's thing done first.
Yeah, once we've had a chance to review this, I can point them to the exact minute where the preview starts.
Yeah, yeah.
But really, I had a great time chatting with you about
It's the olden
coming
days.
on 30 years since we started at TSR together. Oh my God,
So
28 and a half, no, 27 and a half years ago.
wow.
Yeah, it's been a
Um,
while.
so one last question before we wrap up, and that is, I pose to everyone that comes on here. The reason I'm doing this is because it's the 50th anniversary. Well, I guess the reason I'm doing it is because it's fun. But the
Mhm.
impetus for doing it's the 50th anniversary, and we've all been playing a really long time, close to that 50-year mark, somewhere in the 40
Oh
plus
my
years,
God.
right? It's, the game is 50 years old, but you and I have been playing
I've
for
been,
almost 100 years.
am I doing my math right? Since 1976 is 48 years?
Yeah.
Is my math wrong?
Nope. Your math is right.
Holy
48
cats.
years you've been playing D&D. So
Damn.
we're at the
I've been,
50th anniversary. The game is as popular as it's ever been, more so. What do you think the future holds for D&D?
I don't know. I really don't. They did finally have a really fun D&D movie.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some stinkers.
We did.
Do you remember when all of Wizards went to the theater to watch that first movie?
It's a couple of my
And we
friends
were
like
all
to
so
say
excited, and it was so quiet when we all left at the
the movie was so bad they had to tear the theater down.
end. Yeah, but this last one was really lots of
Yeah.
fun. So, I hope D&D has earned its place in our cultural lexicon, right? I mean,
Hmm.
people talk about leveling up and maybe have no idea that came from D&D.
Right?
Or say, how many hit points you got left? It came from D&D. Um, all
Yeah.
that stuff. Chaotic evil, lawful good.
Right. The number
Is-
of ways it has subtly worked its way into the just the normal day to day culture would shock people that don't play it.
mhm. So I hope it keeps going strong. And uh, you know what pleases me most about it in its current state is it's more accessible and entertaining for women as well. I mean,
Hmm.
I always had
Yeah.
friends who were girls who played with us, um, but it was clearly a boys' game in the beginning, and it was the imagination of it that drew the ladies in because
Yeah.
they're women who had great imaginations and loved what we loved growing up. Was make believe was my best friend, right?
When I had Steve Sullivan on, he was saying that in the groups that he played with, there was always a large, a pretty even gender distribution, but that's just not how it was out in the wild.
I'm laughing because somebody referenced Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah,
Was it Monsters and Mazes or something like that? It's supposed to be a D&D movie. This is the
yeah.
80s. And
Well,
instead of figures, they're playing with like paper dolls. And they're like this tall. And I don't know, it was so bad. It was so bad.
um, all right. Well, Todd, hold on. I'm gonna go off screen and close this out, and then I'll come back and we can have a just a quick chat, and we'll wrap this up. But thank you very much, everyone who's watching. I'm about to tell you again, but uh, go find Todd online. Thank him for being here and help spread the word about his Kickstarter and this that wonderful book. I know I'm getting one. A couple people here on the list on this chatter saying they know who they're giving it as a gift to. So
Yeah,
this
well, there are tiers on the Kickstarter where you can buy multiple copies at a discount, signed multiple copies. I don't
beautiful.
think we're going to hit the extended what's it called,
The stretch goal.
the stretch goal for Santa's signature. Doesn't mean it's a dead thing, but it may not happen in the Kickstarter. It could still happen on Backer Kit. I'll have to see because that's a really cool add-on, and I would
Yeah.
like for people to have access to that.
All right. So thank you, Todd. Hold on, and I will bring you back after I do this little wrap up bit.
All right.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank Todd, of course, for being my guest this week. Um, and please go find him, toddlockwood.com, or on Facebook. Look for Todd Lockwood's 12 Days of Christmas and go have a look at that Kickstarter. Share it with your friends. In the meanwhile, I am going to finish up that drawing from the Unearthed Arcana cover that I got about halfway through the line work on that. And if you are a subscriber to our newsletter at 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com, probably Friday, you will see the finished version of that. And if you're not a subscriber, well, next week sometime you'll see it too. I'm not going to hide it from you, but subscribers, they get to see it first. Thank you everyone again for joining in. I'll be back next week. Um, I got a good guest for next week. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna just gonna say that. Taunt you with that. Got a good guest for next week. So keep an eye on the channel and the newsletter to find out who. And until then, thank you all for joining. I appreciate you very much, and I will see you. Oh, tomorrow night. This is tomorrow night. I've got Thursday nights. I do my improv cartooning show, Random Encounters. Next week is the 52nd week in a row that I'm doing an episode. That means a year. I've hit a year with that show, which I can barely believe. Uh, I don't have anything special lined up. Just the usual craziness, but come back to whatever channel you're watching this on tomorrow night, same time, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we will be streaming live with another improv cartoon hour and a half, three random things. And if you're in the audience, you can help participate, and like you would at a comedy improv show. So come and check it out. That's it. I'm done. Thank you again, and I will see you next. Well, see you tomorrow or next week. Bye.